Hello everyone, I am Kristen Register and I am currently teaching in Bogota, Colombia. I am the head of primary at Colegio Gran Bretaña, and I'll give you a little bit of history about how I moved into international teaching. I was a preschool teacher and a primary school teacher in California in the United States, and I laugh about it now, but when I moved into public school and started working for a specific district, the process of changing schools and moving teachers based on student numbers was difficult. I was in 4 schools in 4 years, and even though I was very adaptable and resilient in moving, it was exhausting and tiring, but I loved teaching and I love teaching, and so I did it. And the last year I taught in the US. I was a newer teacher because I had taught preschool for 3 years and then transitioned into public school. And my last year in the district, they had changed job roles, they cut coaching positions, and some of the jobs in the district office from admin shifted, and it moved a lot of veteran teachers back into the classroom, which meant that a lot of newer teachers got bumped out, and I was one of those. And the same moment that I was going through this, my sister and her family were actually moving to Panama. And jokingly, I said, oh, I should go and be an international teacher. It's not like I have something holding me here. And 11 years later, I haven't been back. So I actually did take that step. I looked into the schools that were in Panama and found 3 that really resonated with me and seemed like a good fit. Along the way, I was terrified because I had only lived in the US, and even though I traveled, the thought of living somewhere outside of my bubble and my comfort zone was really scary. It helped that I knew my sister and her family would be there. And so yeah, my brother-in-law was like, I mean, worst case scenario, you live with us, you have a roof over your head, you have food in your stomach, and we'll help you until you can get started and support yourself. And the amazing thing is, I took this leap, and I had been in Panama for 2.5 weeks, and I had applied and sent my CV and had conversations with people before I left, but nothing had opened up yet because I was kind of late in the game putting myself out there. And so I went thinking I would start tutoring and teaching English lessons where needed, and 2.5 weeks in the country, I was offered a job. I went to the schools, I gave them my face, and I made the human side connection. And when I did that, I left. So I went to make that human connection with them, even though I had sent my CV. And when I walked away, before I even got home, they had contacted me, and they were informed that a teacher was having a family problem and wasn't going to be returning in January. And so I was very fortunate with my timing. I could have not gone and made that personal connection, and because I did, they brought me in for interviews, and I went through several, and by the end of that week I was asked to come in, sign contracts, and I was there for 4 years. And while I was there, I did get the itch to kind of want to move somewhere else, not because I wasn't happy there, But somebody had asked me, do you want to be a teacher that just happened to teach in Panama for a few years, or do you want to become an international teacher? And taking some time to really think about that question, I realized I do want to be an international teacher. And the reason why I wanted to be that was going to school and studying in the US, there's a very clear picture of what that looks like. And when I moved to Panama, all of that changed and went out the door. I learned how to teach my students to be thinkers themselves. I learned how to not be so scripted with manuals and textbooks, and really bringing in the creative aspect that students, even young as 3-year-olds, bring into the learning process. And conversations and dialogue are very different than what I had learned and what I had from my studies. There's a lot of things that were very clear on how to get from point A to point B with objectives, with assessments. And I think since I've moved internationally, that has been something that has definitely changed. It is not so cut and dry where we're just using paper assessments or written assessments. There's so much you gain about a student's knowledge, having a conversation with them, having them come up and find a way that fits their needs and their learning styles that they can share with a song or a video, or having them create a way to show their learning to you that's more than just pencil and paper. I think something that I have learned about myself, I am more open now. I am more open to not just learning from other teachers and my colleagues, but more open to other people's cultures, their languages. I live in a Spanish-speaking country, and I don't feel like I'm fluent yet, but grasping what makes their country and their home my home. And I think that openness is something that has really grown since I've been an international teacher. I think the biggest thing I wish I had known is how the process of applying and interviewing takes place. I know as an expat and a foreign hire, the process starts much earlier in the year, where when I was working at public schools in California, the process of hiring took place in April, May, towards the end of the school year, where transitioning into international teaching, I had missed a lot of great opportunities to connect with more schools. And so it narrowed that pool of where I could look and apply. Absolutely, yes, hands down. Even if that is scary, even if there's that nervousness of leaving your comfort zone of your town, your school, your city, even your family, if depending on your circumstances. I have grown as an educator, I've grown as a person, and it has opened my eyes to so much of the world around me instead of just what I knew. So yes, I would hands down say absolutely. I think that change in my mindset and that openness allows me to consider the needs of my students more when I'm planning, when I'm delivering lessons, knowing where they're coming from in terms of the vocabulary they come into my classroom with. We have students in the year group that I teach that are just starting school because of their home countries. They start later and then their parents have moved. So knowing the foundations that my students come in with, depending on the country they're moving from, allows me to really develop lessons and differentiation that's needed for all of the dynamics and needs and language and abilities that my students have.